Everything got over when my husband received video of me cheating. I was shocked to know who sent it. Have you ever had a friend who gave you some really bad advice? Well, I certainly have. And let me tell you, it didn't end well for me. There is a phrase that says, rather trust a stone than a human being. They say listen to your inner voice, your soul, then listen to a friend or anyone else, especially if they were giving advice that would destroy your life and what you are building. I hate the fact that I trusted my friend and went ahead with her advice, only for me to be in the deep end and lose everything I was trying to build. My husband didn't do anything to me or anyone for that matter, but I was encouraged by a friend of mine to pull a prank on him, and guess what happened? I lost the most loving and caring person I had ever had. Today, I want to share a story with you that happened to me recently. It's a cautionary tale about the consequences of making poor choices and underestimating the power of karma. I wish I had made the right choice of decision. I wish I didn't even listen to what my friend had advised me on. Now I'm all alone, lonely with no husband and nothing. I can't believe I actually listened to the bad choice and took action on it. I just hate myself for that. I have to admit, though, things have gotten pretty complicated because of my actions. You know, sometimes we do things thinking it would just be a harmless and innocent fun, not knowing that the fun we had would become our worst nightmare. I didn't know it would turn out like how it had turned. I didn't even get a warning, but either way, it became my worst nightmare. I'll be using fake name to protect the privacy of the involved parties. My name is Brittany Smith, female 29, and my husband is Bradley James, male 29. Bradley and I met at Central Park. I was going through a lot that day. I had just lost my parents and things at home were not looking good. So Central Park was the only escape for me. So as I was sitting on the park benches reading my book while listening to music, Brandon came and asked if he could sit. At first I didn't hear him because of the earphone that I had on my ears up until he nudged my shoulder. I gave him the go-ahead to sit on the bench since it was nor occupied. I was reading a book called The White Book, written by Han Kang. I loved reading that novel. It gave me some sort of peace and assurance that everything was going to be fine. Bradley asked me when I had started reading the book. I tried to ignore him, but he kept nudging me and distracting me. I finally gave him my attention, only to find out that he was actually a fan of Han Kang. We talked about the book, and he even introduced me to other Han Kang books. Growing up, I always valued my friendships deeply. My friends were my confidants, my partners in crime, and my support system. When I married Bradley, I brought my friends along into the intimate circle of our marriage. I believed that they could only enhance our lives together, offering support and joy. I had no reason to suspect that this trust would be misplaced. Bradley and I had been married for 5 years. Our relationship built on love, trust, and mutual respect. We shared everything from our dreams to our fears. But as I would soon learn, involving friends in our marriage could bring unforeseen consequences. So I had a friend, her name is Mandy Lawrence, female 29. We had been friends since high school. She was a very wild person. She loved partying a lot while I was just an introvert. I don't really know how we became friends because our personalities do not match. We were way too different. My aunt didn't like her. She would say she's too forward and loose, so she didn't want me to associate myself with her. Despite my aunt's disapproval, I continued being friends with Mandy secretly without my aunt knowing. When I got into a relationship with Bradley, I had scars on seeing Mandy. I was always spending my time with Bradley, not because I didn't like to spend time with Mandy, but Bradley understood me better, you know. He knew what I needed and at what time. Mandy was always out partying. She wasn't available when I needed her the most, but Bradley was there. He would even drop anything that he would be doing and attend to my call. How did I get here? How did I mess such a good thing that was going on between Bradley and myself? I loved my friend Mandy a lot. Heck, I took her as my sister. Everything that she would say to advise me, I could take it, but it would depend on what I was going through at that time. Mandy was the kind of a friend that would tell you what to do and find a way to convince you until you give in. I should have figured out that her advice of making me prank on my husband was because she never liked Bradley and she wanted to test our marriage. She would always find something to say about him. She would make sure to find a fault in everything Bradley did. My friend told me that I could just prank my husband and get away with it because he loves me so much and she wanted to test his love for me. I didn't really know what that meant at the time, but she made it sound like it was a sure thing. At first, I was taken aback by her audacity. How could she suggest such a thing? But as she continued to explain her theory, I found myself intrigued by the idea of getting away with something so forbidden. So I listened to her and started seeing someone behind my husband's back. I thought I was being sneaky, that I had it all figured out. But boy, was I wrong. Sure, my husband was a humble and down-to-earth person, but he was not easily manipulative. I took Mandy's advice because I had thought it was going to be a once-off thing and Bradley was not going to act the way he acted. I wanted to have a little bit of fun and feel how it was to go outside and explore and experience new things that you had never experienced before. So against my better judgment, I decided to follow her advice. I know it was very dumb and very foolish of me to listen to someone who was not married while I was married. I didn't even think of the consequences that would take place when Bradley hears that I had orchestrated the prank that was pulled on him. I just wanted to feel some type of way for a little bit and to see how Bradley would react. I began an affair behind my husband's back, thinking that I would never get caught. Then I pranked him with my friend, telling him that I had found my dream man. I felt invincible, untouchable even. It was supposed to be a harmless joke. So Mandy and I went to this party. It was one of her own friends' parties, and to say it was nice would be an understatement. It was lit, the vibe was there, and everything was just so perfect. As introverted as I am, but I enjoyed that party a lot. Of course, I had lied to Bradley about where I was going because if I had told him, he would have told me not to go. I just don't know what was happening between Mandy and Bradley, but their spirits didn't connect. They didn't like each other, and that was somehow affecting me. I was in the middle of their own beef. So at the party, Mandy introduced me to this certain guy. She introduced him as Lucas Jordan. The guy was really handsome. I won't lie, but he was not as handsome as my husband Bradley. The Lucas guy was so talkative for my liking, and he was a loquacious and a narcissist person. Throughout the whole night that I had spent with him, it was about him and what he finds interesting. The guy was very handsome and all, but he had no brains, just being a foolish narcissist. Mandy came back, and I told her that I wanted to go back home since it was past midnight. I told her that Bradley must be worried about me, especially since my phone's battery had died. My friend, or must I say my so-called friend Mandy, convinced me to stay and told me to let loose a little and be myself, and not act like I was a 50-year-old grandma. After a lot of convincing that she did, I finally gave in. Then she told me that even if I find someone attractive, I shouldn't be scared to explore and enjoy that person. It wasn't like my husband would find out, and she had a better plan, which was to prank my husband. I know I should have defended my husband and not let Mandy's manipulative self get into my head, but what did I do? I just fell straight on her trap, and I was the one who found myself in hot waters. I found myself in the crossroad, not knowing where I was going and where I should go. I shouldn't have allowed Mandy to do that to me in my marriage. But I guess I was too naive to notice that Mandy was actually trying to destroy my marriage. So during that night, the boring Lucas guy and I continued to engage in a casual conversation. I was glad that he had finally stopped talking about himself like he was in a competition with someone or someone was going to tell him that he was lying. Our conversation was smooth. I drank a lot, trying to forget about my husband that I had left at home and what Mandy wanted us to do. I got intoxicated and I found myself kissing Lucas. His lips were soft and tender. But one thing that threw me off was the way he was kissing me. He didn't have the skills to kiss. The only thing he was chasing was what was in between my legs. No. But another thing, he knew how to explore a woman's body, that I can give him a 10 out of 10. He took me from the party to another planet. I felt like I was floating in clouds. That's how much I was enjoying the way he was exploring my body. I loved every moment of it. Besides the kissing skills, the guy had great body exploration skills and good intimate drive. He made me reach my climax within a few minutes, and I don't know how many times I had climaxed. That's how good it was. The following morning, I realized what I had done. The guilt was eating me up so bad to a point that I was even scared to go back home. I didn't know how I would look into my husband's eyes and act like everything was normal while I had committed such abomination. I hated myself for what I had done, and I was regretting it greatly. I thought to myself that a lot would be destroyed if Bradley was to find out. I had gone out there and jeopardized my marriage and relationship with my husband. I was so angry at Mandy for manipulating me to go to the party and to stay when I said I wanted to go back home. My mind kept telling me that Mandy had planned all of this. She knew what would happen when I agreed to stay. She made me chill with that Lucas guy for a purpose. I couldn't believe myself that I was easily manipulated like that, and I was really scared of the outcomes of my abomination because nothing stays in the dark forever. You know, you cannot sweep off something and put it under the carpet and think it would stay there forever. What happened in the dark will always find its way to the light. That morning, Mandy came out of nowhere. I don't know how she knew where I was, but I didn't put that in mind. I was just happy that she was there, you know. So she came up with the plan that we will call my husband and she would be the one to speak to him. I didn't have any problem with that because it was Mandy and I trusted her. I really thought the prank call was not going to cause any harm because we were just playing. So I let my friend make the call to my husband, pretending to be another man and claiming that I had met my dream guy while out. I was giggling, thinking it would be a funny joke to play on him. So during the day, Mandy told me to send my husband a text and tell him that I won't be coming back home, but I'll come back the following day. I did as told because I was still ashamed and scared of going back home after the abomination that I had done. I felt dirty and my mind was busy playing the events of the previous night. Later that day, a group of close friends and I decided to enjoy a rare evening of fun and relaxation. As a busy professional and a devoted wife, such outings were few and far between. I joined my friends for a night that promised laughter and good times, oblivious to the impending disaster. The atmosphere of the night was vibrant, filled with laughter, music, and the camaraderie that only long-term friendships can bring. We gathered at a popular local bar, its atmosphere a mix of dim lights, upbeat music, and the hum of conversations. As the night progressed, the drinks flowed and the mood lightened. We reminisced about old times, shared stories, and indulged in the kind of carefree banter that adulthood rarely allows. The birth of the idea. Among the group was Mendy, known for her mischievous sense of humor. As the evening wore on, Emma suggested a prank call. It was meant to be harmless fun, a throwback to our younger days when such antics were commonplace. The suggestion sparked laughter and excitement, a welcome addition to our night of revelry. However, the target of the prank and its nature were yet to be decided. The prank call, the proposal. Mendy's eyes twinkled with mischief as she proposed the idea. "Why don't we prank call Bradley?" she suggested. "Let's tell him you've met your dream man tonight." The suggestion was met with laughter, and the alcohol-fueled atmosphere dulled our sense of caution. Despite a momentary hesitation, I found myself agreeing, caught up in the playful spirit of the evening. The execution, Mendy took my phone and with a theatrical flourish dialed Bradley's number. The group fell silent, anticipation hanging in the air. When Bradley answered, Mendy launched into her act, adopting a tone of exaggerated excitement. "Bradley," she said, "you want to believe this. I think I've met my dream man tonight." She described an imaginary scenario with vivid detail, portraying me as utterly captivated by this fictional person. On the other end of the line, Bradley's initial confusion quickly turned to disbelief. "What are you talking about?" he asked, his voice tinged with a mix of confusion and rising panic. Mendy continued the charade for a few more moments before the tension in Bradley's voice became palpable. Realizing the joke had gone too far, she hastily ended the call with a laugh, declaring it was all in jest. However, the damage was already done. The immediate aftermath of my return home. When I returned home, the atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Bradley was waiting, his face a mask of anger and hurt. The lightheartedness of the evening vanished in an instant as I saw the turmoil in his eyes. The prank, which seemed harmless at the time, had clearly struck a nerve. My attempts to explain and apologize were met with cold silence, his anger simmering just beneath the surface. The confrontation. The confrontation that followed was intense. Bradley's voice trembled with a mix of anger and pain as he expressed his feelings of betrayal and confusion. "How could you do that?" he demanded. "Do you have any idea how that made me feel?" His words cut deep, each one a reminder of the trust I had so carelessly undermined. I tried to explain that it was just a joke, but the damage was already done. A few weeks later, things reached a breaking point. Mark sat me down one evening, his expression somber and resolute. "I can't do this anymore," he said quietly. "The trust is gone, and I don't see a way to fix this." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. "What are you saying, Bradley?" "I'm saying I want a divorce," he replied, his voice steady but filled with sadness. "I can't stay in a marriage where I don't feel secure or respected." I was stunned, unable to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "But it was just a joke, Mark. A stupid, thoughtless joke." "It wasn't just a joke," he said, shaking his head. "It was what it revealed about us, about you. I need someone I can trust completely, and I don't feel that with you anymore." One day, my husband found out about my affair. He was devastated, heartbroken. I had betrayed his trust and shattered our marriage. He was still angry at the fact that I had let my friend prank call him saying that I had found my dream man. I don't know how he found out about my night with Lucas. I had thought that I had managed to keep things in the dark. Another thing, only Mendy knew about what happened between Lucas and I, so it was just clear that she might have a hand in Bradley finding out about my abomination. But as they say, what goes around comes around. And boy, did karma hit me hard. It didn't take long for my husband to discover my infidelity. The pain and betrayal in his eyes were unbearable, and I knew that I had made a grave mistake. It turns out that karma has a way of catching up with you when you least expect it. And let me tell you, it hit me hard. Only if I had a rejecting backbone, all of this would have been avoided and I wouldn't find myself in the sticky situation. I realized then that my friend's advice was not only wrong, but also incredibly hurtful. I had let her words manipulate me into making a terrible decision. I soon realized that my friend's misguided advice was not only wrong, but also incredibly damaging. I had allowed myself to be influenced by someone who didn't have my best interests at heart. Another thing I was asking myself was how my husband found out about what I had done. Only 2 people knew about my infidelity. It was the person that I had cheated with and my friend Mendy only. I wondered who might have told Bradley about the cheating that I had committed. You know, when Bradley found out about my infidelity, he confronted me about it. Mind you, that time I was still trying to make him forgive me for the prank call saga. And now the cheating bomb comes up. It was a mess, I tell you. I tried to deny it, but my denial was nothing because the man had evidence of what I had done. He had a video of me kissing Lucas. I prayed for him to not find out what had really gone down at that party. He only had the video of me kissing Lucas, and I was glad with that because I would have lost my husband if he was to find out. That's what my mind was telling me. Little did I know that a week later he would get the video. I didn't know who was busy sending him videos of things that I had done. As I faced the consequences of my actions, I learned a valuable lesson about the power of karma. Cheating on my husband not only hurt him, but also shattered the trust and love we had built over the years. Now I'm left dealing with the consequences of my actions. My husband and I are trying to work through our issues, but it's not easy. We had started a couples therapy together. I told him that I was intoxicated and I didn't think about what led me to kiss the guy. That time I was trying to fix my things with my husband because of the kiss situation. But things got out of hand when he received the video of me and Lucas getting it down. I don't know who must have taken a video of me, but whoever took a video had straight intentions of destroying my marriage. And guess what? He or she succeeded because with all the effort that we had pulled up to fix our relationship, it went down the drain and there was nothing I would do about it. My conscience told me that Mandy knew about the video that was sent to Bradley, and I really suspected her. As much as she didn't like Bradley, but maybe she had his number. You would never know with Mandy, but I knew her and how she is. After Bradley received the S** tape, I knew there and then that my marriage was over, and thanks to the person who sent the video to Bradley. And thanks to my nonchalant and ignorant self, I should have known that all of that was a trap. Being stopped to go home when I wanted to go and connecting me with the Lucas guy was all Mandy's plan of making me cheat on my husband. Now I have lost everything I had, and I don't know how I would survive without the only person who understood me for who I was, and not what I had to offer. I tried to apologize to Bradley, but he didn't want to hear any of it. To say he was angry would be an understatement. The man was furious, enraged with the mix of heartbreak. The damage was too high, and there was nothing to do in order to fix it. Not even therapy sessions would have helped. I had destroyed the most valuable thing in my life, all because I had let myself get manipulated by a person I called a friend. My heart and mind was not at peace, knowing that someone had a hand in destroying my marriage. So I had to find out who had sent Bradley the videos of me. That person knew how to get Bradley. I wanted to find out who it was so that I would be at peace knowing the truth. I know it wasn't going to fix my marriage and my relationship with Bradley, but I felt like I needed to know the person behind my sorrows. That person had managed to destroy me emotionally and mentally. I went back home since Bradley didn't want me anywhere near him. It was like I was disgusting to him or something. He told me to wait for our lawyer anytime soon to deliver divorce papers because he can't be with a loose person with no common sense. He was angry at the fact that I had lied to him about my whereabouts, and another thing was that I was gone with Mandy to a party. He knew and understood that I am an introvert and I didn't like going out in crowded places, but I had gone with Mandy, which was something that fueled him more. During my investigation, I had found out that my so-called friend Mandy had actually paid the guy Lucas to sleep with me. I just couldn't believe it, you know. So Mandy had decided to sell me to Lucas, all for what? So when I was still reading what I had got during my investigation, it showed that Mandy had been texting someone in a seductive way. My husband, but Bradley didn't pay any attention to her stunts. I then realized that she came up with the prank call plan to cause a rivalry between my husband and I just because she was jealous of my marriage. I was so shocked when I discovered that my friend that I had taken and treated like a sister was actually the same person who had destroyed my marriage, and not to stop there. She was busy seducing my man behind my back. I now understand why Bradley didn't like her and my aunt had warned me against her. I was so naive, and Mandy took advantage of that to destroy me. I was so heartbroken and shuddered. I didn't know what to do because as much as I was heartbroken at the fact that I had cheated on Bradley and he filed for a divorce. Another thing was my separation from my husband. On the other hand, the person I had trusted with my life had betrayed me in the worst way possible. Till today, I am unable to move on from what had taken place. I miss my home, my husband, and how our love used to be. I didn't take any actions regarding what I had found about Mandy, and I decided to just leave her alone and focus on my life. I believed that what was happening to me was actually karma for cheating on my husband. The pain I was feeling when I found out that Mandy was the reason for my marriage to end, it was too deep, and it hurt more than a divorce. I want to forgive myself and forgive Mandy for what she had done and what I had done, but it wasn't easy. It felt like the more I tried to allow myself to forgive and forget, the more I was hurting myself. My divorce with Bradley hasn't been finalized, and I am praying that he comes back to his senses and allows us to try again and fix our marriage. I wish he could give me a chance to rectify my wrongs and fix what is broken. I know I had not only broken our marriage and trust, but I had also broken the heart of the only person who had shown me genuine love and care. Bradley had been there for me throughout everything that I was going through. He had helped me find myself again after my parents' passing and the ill treatment I was getting from my distant family members. My aunt was so disappointed in me when she heard the truth of why I was coming back home, and I don't blame her. Bradley's decision to divorce me set off a chain of events that would turn my life upside down. The legal process was long and arduous, filled with emotional turmoil and financial strain. Despite my attempts to reach a settlement, Bradley was adamant about leaving me with as little as possible. The divorce proceedings were brutal. Bradley's lawyer painted a picture of me as reckless and untrustworthy, using the prank call as evidence of my irresponsibility. My lawyer tried to argue that it was an isolated incident, but the damage to my reputation was done. The court ruled in Bradley's favor. I was left with almost nothing: no house, no significant assets, and minimal financial support. The life I had known was shattered, and I was left to pick up the pieces on my own. With the divorce finalized and my financial situation dire, I was forced to make drastic changes. I moved into a small apartment far removed from the comfortable home I had shared with Bradley. The loneliness was overwhelming and the sense of loss was profound. I took on multiple jobs to make ends meet, working long hours to pay bills and rebuild my life. The strain of starting over was immense, but it also gave me a sense of purpose and determination. I was determined to prove that I could survive and thrive despite the setbacks. As the months passed, I found myself reflecting on the events that had led to my downfall. The prank call was a catalyst, but it was clear that deeper issues had been festering in my marriage. Bradley and I had failed to communicate effectively, and our trust had eroded long before that fateful night. I began to focus on personal growth, seeking therapy to address my own issues and understand my actions better. Therapy helped me gain insights into my behavior and the dynamics of my relationship with Bradley. It also provided me with tools to build healthier relationships in the future. One of the hardest parts of my journey was finding forgiveness, both from Bradley and from myself. I reached out to Bradley hoping to apologize and seek closure. To my surprise, he agreed to meet. Our conversation was raw and honest. I apologized for the hurt I had caused and acknowledged the pain I had inflicted. Bradley, in turn, shared his own regrets and admitted that he had been struggling with his own issues. While we didn't reconcile, our conversation allowed us to part on better terms. It was a step towards healing, and it provided me with a sense of closure that I desperately needed. With time, I began to rebuild my life. I pursued further education to improve my job prospects and eventually found a stable career that provided financial security. I also rekindled old friendships and made new ones, creating a support system that helped me navigate the challenges of my new life. Through therapy and self-reflection, I learned to value myself and set boundaries in my relationships. I also discovered a passion for writing, using it as a therapeutic outlet to process my emotions and experiences. Years passed, and I found myself in a much better place, emotionally, financially, and personally. I had built a life that I was proud of, one that was rooted in self-respect and resilience. One day, while attending a friend's wedding, I met someone new. James was kind, understanding, and patient. We connected on a deep level, and as our relationship grew, I found myself experiencing a sense of happiness and fulfillment that I hadn't felt in a long time. James and I took things slowly, building a relationship based on trust and mutual respect. He understood my past and supported my journey towards healing. With him, I felt safe and valued, and I realized that I had finally found a partner who complemented me in every way. My journey from heartbreak to healing was long and arduous, but it taught me valuable lessons about trust, communication, and self-worth. I learned that true love is built on a foundation of mutual respect and honesty, and that effective communication is essential in any relationship. I also discovered the importance of self-forgiveness and personal growth. Mistakes and setbacks are inevitable, but they can also serve as opportunities for learning and growth. By addressing my own issues and seeking to understand myself better, I was able to build a healthier, more fulfilling life. As I look back on the events that led to the end of my marriage and the subsequent rebuilding of my life, I am filled with a sense of gratitude. While the journey was painful, it ultimately led me to a place of strength and self-awareness. I am now in a loving and supportive relationship with James, and we are building a future together based on the lessons we have both learned. I continue to pursue my passion for writing, using it as a way to connect with others and share my experiences. Looking back, I could see the many mistakes I had made and the lessons I had learned. The prank call was a foolish and thoughtless act, one that had far-reaching consequences. But it also taught me the importance of trust, respect, and communication in a relationship. I learned that actions have consequences, and that the bonds of trust can be fragile and easily broken. I understood the importance of considering the feelings of others and the need for open and honest communication. These lessons, though learned the hard way, helped me to grow and become a better person. The journey from that ill-fated night to my new life was long and difficult, filled with pain and challenges, but it also showed me my own strength and resilience. I discovered that I could overcome even the most devastating setbacks and build a new and fulfilling life. The support of friends, the love of my daughter, and the new relationship with James all helped me to heal and move forward. I found joy and purpose in new ways, learning to appreciate the small moments of happiness and the connections with those around me. As I stood on the threshold of my new life, I felt a sense of hope and excitement. The pain of my past would always be a part of me, but it no longer defined me. I had the strength to face the future and the wisdom to build a life that was filled with love, trust, and fulfillment. I embraced the opportunities before me, ready to create new memories and forge new connections. The journey had been difficult, but it had also made me stronger and more resilient. I knew that I could face whatever challenges lay ahead and that I had the support and love of those around me. I learned the power of love and forgiveness. I forgave myself for my past mistakes and found the courage to move forward. I learned to love myself and to accept the love and support of others. This journey of healing and growth was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the power of love to overcome even the greatest challenges. As I looked at my daughter and the life I had built, I knew that I had found a new beginning. The pain of my past would always be a part of my story, but it was no longer the defining chapter. I had the strength, the love, and the wisdom to create a future filled with hope and happiness. And with that, I stepped forward, ready to embrace whatever the future held. I've learned the hard way that cheating is never the answer. It only leads to pain and destruction. So if you ever find yourself in a situation where a friend is encouraging you to do something wrong, think twice. Consider the consequences and choose the path of honesty and integrity. Mendy really did a number on me, but I'm not complaining because she taught me a lesson that no one would teach me. I am now in a better space. I am happy and looking forward to creating more great memories with the one that I love now. Please help me with advice for a better and fruitful relationship.
Words fail me, and at this point I'm struggling to come up with the right words to say what is on my mind. My husband doesn't even want to touch me at all. He doesn't want to look at me or even pick my calls. No wife wants her husband to treat her that way, and I am one of those women. I know what I did was and is still wrong. There's no excuse for that, and I don't think I'll ever recover from what I did to him. The fact that my touch grosses my husband out now is very depressing for me. It's not something I expected from him, and it's not a reaction I thought he'd have. I cheated on him with my personal coach, and now my daughter might grow up in a broken home. My name is Daniela, and I'm a 25-year-old gymnast. Gymnastics is something I love a lot, and I have done it for close to 5 years now. I am not an extreme professional, and I do not play at the national or international level. It is just something I love doing, and I play at many competitions in the city. I am able to earn money when I win those competitions, and sometimes I conduct training and charge people to learn from me. Being a gymnast has a lot of ethics, and there is a lot of training I have to do. I have to train almost all the time so that I can be able to perform and teach the people under me well. I am also a married man, and I have been married for close to 4 years now. I got married quite early because my husband caught my eye, Lowell. He proposed barely 1 year after we started dating, and I said yes without thinking about it because he is someone I really like. The name of my husband is Cole, and he is 28 years old. He is a dietitian and has been a dietitian even before we met. Our marriage is like a healthy marriage because both of us are very fit, and we like to eat very healthy. As a dietitian, Cole is very strict with the food we eat and everything that we take into our body. I also manage to stay healthy because I am married to him, and they are certain foods that he doesn't let me take. There are many times when I used to struggle with food even before I met him, because as a gymnast, there are many things that I have been told not to eat, but it was hard to keep up. I didn't even know a lot about the proper diet to take, and I did not want to spend money on hiring a dietitian. So when I met Cole, it was very easy for me to blend in and keep up with my diet. Is very good at what he does, and I am always thankful that I found him. But it seems like all of that is now a story for the past because there is nothing I can do at this point. I have used my own hands to put a very huge bridge between us, and I don't think I can honestly get rid of the guilt I feel right now. Barely 9 months ago, I gave birth to my first child, Nora. She's the sweetest soul, and she's the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love her so much, and I don't think I can ever stop loving her. But having Nora was not easy at all. I'm not even going to limit everything to only me and act like I was the only one that was stressed and tired. Even Cole went through a lot during my pregnancy, and it was a very tough time for us. I think the physical aspect wasn't even the toughest thing I had to go through. For me, it was the mental and emotional stress that I put myself through. When I say mental stress, I mean it literally. It was hard for a person like me who has been all about my physical fitness and maintaining a fit body to suddenly have to go through pregnancy. I didn't think it was going to be as hard as it was at all. In fact, I never expected it to take a toll on me. I knew I wanted children, and I still want children. Cole and I spoke about it a lot during the first weeks of our marriage, and we had decided to wait some years before we tried having a child. Just like we planned together, we waited for almost 2.5 years before I got pregnant. Seeing my body change every day was not easy for me at all. I just watched how my body changed from its normal state to fit the body of a pregnant woman. Not even Cole had been able to make me feel better. To his credit, I know he tried his best. He tried to calm me down and make me feel better, but I'd been so absorbed in my own thoughts that nothing he said made sense to me. It was also very difficult for me to have to change my usual diet. I'd always watched how I eat, and I never eat a lot. I didn't even eat junk before. But after getting pregnant, my body wanted a lot of weird things. And I've heard from a lot of people that it's a normal occurrence and that there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think I was ever able to understand why I eat so much. I tried resisting my cravings, but my doctor strictly told me that none of my former diets mattered during pregnancy. It was very hard, but I had to get used to it, so I did. Cole was helpful in his own little ways. He still had work, and he was barely home. But I appreciated the fact that he tried to be present in any way he could. It meant a lot to me, and I never took it for granted. But I still had to go through the pregnancy myself, and yeah, it was not easy. Now that I remember it, I don't know if I want to laugh or cry. My reaction to seeing my body when I was 9 months pregnant was crazy. I thought I'd never be able to be a gymnast again, but back then, I found it easier to adapt. I wasn't as worried as I was before, and I didn't make a big deal out of it. Even Cole noticed that I was not as cranky as I was before. It took me a while, 9 months, to finally accept the pregnant body. I started loving it, but my delivery date was due by then. I didn't work all through my pregnancy because my line of work expected me to climb on poles, no room for error. My husband rejects my touch. After I cheated, my personal coach jump. Gymnastics involves a lot of physical action and body flexibility. I couldn't do any of that during my pregnancy, and it was risky for me and the baby. I had to close down my training center and sit out all the competitions I usually engaged in. I knew that once I finally gave birth, I'd have a lot of work to do before I got my career back on track and got my normal life back. The birth of my child Nora wasn't complicated at all, and it was all thanks to my husband and my doctor. They made sure I ate right and did the right exercises. I fell in love with my daughter the moment I set my eyes on her, and so did my husband. But our problems began from that very moment. I can never dispute the fact that my daughter was my bundle of joy, and her birth brought me the largest amount of joy. But her birth also made me feel insecure all over again. My body after giving birth to her was not the same as my body before getting pregnant. I thought I'd magically go back to my old body, but that was not the case. I am an only child, and I lived with my dad all my life before getting married. I've never really been close to someone pregnant or had a lot of lectures about how pregnancy works. I was a first-timer with no previous knowledge. I know I had nurses and the internet to give explanations, but there's nothing like hearing from the horse's mouth live and direct and seeing everything for yourself. I thought I'd be an exception because I was a gymnast and I trained a lot. Well, that wasn't the case, and it came as a big shock to me. I almost got depressed again, but my daughter helped me stay strong. I breastfed Nora exclusively for 3 months before I started going non-exclusive. I stayed at home with her for some weeks after she turned 3 months before I told my husband I was ready to get back to work. That was where the genesis really began, guys. My husband agreed and stated that he had no problem with me getting back to work, but I had a lot of problems with getting back to my previous body shape. I was very insecure and I didn't want to get back to class like that. Back then, I used to be the one that told my students to stay fit and not let their body get the best of them because staying fit was very important in gymnastics. But for me to be the one going back without staying fit was not okay. I needed to be the example as a teacher, and even though they all knew I'd just given birth, I was still very insecure. The first day I was supposed to go, I refused to go and I stayed home all through. When Cole came back and noticed that I'd been at home all day, he asked me what the problem was and I told him that I wasn't confident in my body. The same thing happened 3 more times, and that's when I decided to seek advice from my fellow gymnasts that had given birth before. I was not ready to watch my career slip off my fingers because gymnastics was something that I'd done for a very long time. Most of the people I met told me it was totally normal, and that if I wanted to get my body back, all I needed to do was get a personal coach or go to the gym regularly. They asked me how fast I wanted to start work, and I told them that I wanted to start immediately because I needed to get back to work and I'd already wasted a lot of time. That's why they told me it was best to get a personal coach. They said it was faster to have someone coach me and keep an eye on my growth. They also recommended some good coaches to me, and I told them I'd get back to them after speaking to my husband. When Cole came back from work that day, I told him of my plans to get a personal coach in order to get my body back again. Cole asked me if I already had some options in mind, and I told him that they recommended some people already to me, but I was open to more suggestions. I asked him if he had people he wanted to introduce to me, and he said yes. I told him I had no problem with him choosing the coach for me. All I really wanted to do was get a coach that was good at his job and could help me stay fit. I didn't care who he was or who introduced me to him. I also guessed that Cole must have had his reasons for choosing the coach for me personally. I just thought that maybe he wanted to be familiar with the coach that would eventually train me. I initially wanted it to be a female coach because I was not really comfortable with a male coach seeing me in my insecure state. But it was hard to get a female coach, and most of them were not ready to work with a woman that just gave birth. They said it would be more difficult to work with a mother because they would go easy on her. I didn't get what kind of logic that was, but I had no choice. The only great coaches I knew were women, and they were either booked or not ready to work with a woman. Cole was finally able to find a coach for me after weeks of trying, and I was very grateful for that. I needed to start work immediately, so I was introduced to the coach barely 2 days after he was hired. His name is Landon, and I discovered that he was a 30-year-old fitness instructor. He also coached gymnasts that wanted to get back in shape. My husband seemed a little bit familiar with him, and that made me quite comfortable. I was still nervous because I put a lot of pressure on myself and wanted to put in a lot of work. Landon and I started out very professional, and we never even spoke except for physical fitness-related topics. Landon was very dedicated to his work, and I was very dedicated to getting my body back to its normal fitted form. London also had a lot of clients to attend to, and I was not the only one. Anytime I went back home after a session with Landon, I always gave my husband feedback and told him how stressful it was. Even though I had a lot of reasons to work hard and not slack off, it was hard for me to get used to exercising all over again. Do you know what it means to have a 1-year break? I was practically a rookie when it came to exercising, and it was a very weird feeling for me. I even found it hard to go back to my old diet, and that was one of the major challenges in my workout. Landon was very patient at first, but with time I could tell that he was also getting very tired of me complaining about several things instead of putting in work. One day, he decided to confront me and ask me why I was not putting in a lot of work. I apologized to him and told him that it was just difficult for me to keep up because of everything that had happened. He listened to me and did not interrupt me while I spoke. He just told me that I should not let everything that happened in the past get in the way of what I wanted to in the future. Landon told me that he knew most of the things he was saying were easier said than done, but it was important for me to have the right mindset or else I was just wasting my time and also wasting his time. He gave me a book that he said I should read in order to set my mindset right. I was very thankful, and I promised to read back that book because I was really desperate for good results. After reading the book, I told him that I finished it after 1 week. He then told me that it was important for me to use my daughter's birth as motivation, because it was important for me to have a mindset that enabled Nora to be my biggest motivation. That was not difficult for me because I really wanted to do things right and be able to let her know that our mother did not give up when things did not go her way. Landon and I became friends, and I enjoyed the stories of other people that struggled with the same thing I had been struggling with. It was refreshing to know that I was not going through that tough time alone because I used to feel guilty and think that I was overreacting. I started looking forward to our classes even though we only had classes 3 times in a week. I really enjoyed the moments when I would be praised for the progress I made and when I would be complimented. I didn't even realize that I started craving Landon's classes. It was not something that I was consciously aware of, and I just tried my best to keep on going to the class. I also reopened my gym training classes because I was slowly getting myself back together. I had regained my confidence to a certain level, and I had been ready to get back to work. I knew that I was not fully there yet, but I just wanted to put one foot in and try my best first. Cole kept asking me why I was not done with the personal training, and I told him that it was because I didn't want to slack off when I stopped. Cole started getting very irritated with the personal classes, and even though he did not tell me directly, I knew that he was no longer happy that I kept on having the personal classes with Landon. I didn't expect to get such a reaction out of Cole at all. I used to think that he was perfectly fine with me having a coach that would help me regain my fitness. But his behavior after I reopened my training center told me that was not his plan at all. I just concluded that I had been seeing things, and I decided that I would not say anything until Cole told me what he felt by himself. I didn't have to wait for long at all because Cole eventually called me one day and told me he had to speak to me. I don't think it was a coincidence that he chose to speak to me on the exact day that I was supposed to go and see the coach. I had no choice than to cancel the meeting that day and tell the coach that I had come down with a fever. I asked Coley what was so important that he could not tell me the night before even when we had slept in the same bed. He just brushed off my accusation and told me that he had forgotten to tell me the night before. He told me that he felt it was about time that I stopped seeing the personal coach. I was really surprised to hear that from him because I did not know that he had been thinking about that. I asked him what his reasons were and why he suddenly felt that way, and he told me that his thoughts were not sudden and that he had been thinking about it for a very long time. He asked me if it was possible that I will stop 2 weeks from that conversation, and I told him that it was not possible. I had a very big fear of stopping and then getting back to slacking off. I tried to explain my concerns to Cole, but nothing I said made sense to him. He said his words were final and that he did not plan on going back on his words. I was very surprised to see Cole act in that authoritative manner. We actually got into an argument, and he told me he was not ready to have his wife continuously train with a personal coach that was a male. The funny thing is that nothing had happened between Landon and I during that period yet. I didn't even cheat on Cole before he started getting strict. Cole told me that people were talking, and he was tired of making excuses for me. I tried to make him understand where I was coming from, but he shunned me down and told me his decision was final. Even though I was not really happy with his decision, I decided that it was best to let it go and not say anything. I agreed to stop my personal classes with the coach on the condition that I had 2 more months to have my personal classes. Cole was not ready to agree at first, but when I told him that was the only way I would stop, he agreed. I was very upset that he had been suspecting me and that he wanted to cut my personal classes short. I didn't get why he wanted to be the one to dictate how long I did my own workouts. Even though he had been supportive to an extent, I was the only one who could understand what I actually felt, and he was just an observer. I told the coach that we only had 2 months to train together before I stopped coming to the classes. Landon asked me why I suddenly made the decision, and I told him that my husband was the one who decided on my behalf. Landon decided that it was first I started coming for my training classes more regularly, in order to train as much as I could before the 2 months elapsed. I felt really frustrated that I had to end the classes, and I did not keep my thoughts away from the coach. Never. He told me not to worry about it and that he could understand where my husband was coming from. We spoke more during our training classes and found time to discuss the next step. It felt weird for me that after each training class, I always felt quite awkward. I literally never wanted to leave the training classes even after we were done. That continued for a few more weeks, and Landon noticed. He tried playing it off at first, but I think I noticed it and took it as a cue for a green light. He started making funny remarks and bringing up conversations outside of fitness. There were times when he would randomly compliment my body and flirt with me. I don't want to lie, so I will tell the truth. I never stopped him from flirting with me, and there were times when I flirted back. Barely 5 days after we started flirting with each other, he kissed me after one of our classes. I kissed him back, and we ended up making out for hours. He asked me if I wanted to follow him to his house, and I said yes. I wasn't even thinking, and I ended up sleeping with him that day. I slept off and woke up almost 2 hours later. I realized that it was already 6 p.m. when I woke up, and I was supposed to be at the house already. I couldn't believe that I had cheated without alcohol influence. I did it without being drunk. Landon tried convincing me to stay the night, but I refused. I told him that I just couldn't continue whatever we had going on. He was very upset, and then he asked me a very important question. If you're not ready, then why did you lead me on? I couldn't deny the fact that I led him on, and I apologized for that. I told him that I just couldn't continue to cheat on my husband. He was very furious, but I left his house after saying that to him. Ever since I started training with Landon and going to train my students, my mother was the one who babysitted Nora for me. I decided to sleep at my mother's place that day, and I called Cole to tell him I would not be returning home. Cole was surprised because all through our marriage, I'd never asked to sleep outside the house before. He asked me where I was, and I assured him that I was at my mother's place. He didn't question me after that. He ended the call, and then I switched off my phone. I slept in my mother's hands with my daughter that night, and I could tell that she sensed that something was wrong. She just didn't want to say it out loud. The next day, my brother practically sent me out of her house. She thought I ran to her because I was having issues with my husband, so she didn't want to keep me from resolving my issues with him. I tried to make her understand that it wasn't the case, but all my pleas fell on deaf ears. I had to just leave her house and go back home to meet Cole. When I got home, he was surprisingly at home. That was very unusual because he usually went to work early. And I asked him if there was any problem, but he just told me that he had been tired, and that was why he made the decision to skip work that day. I was not really happy about that, because the last thing I wanted to do after cheating on my husband with my personal coach was see him around the house all day. I didn't want to raise his suspicions by acting like it was a problem, so I just went to the bedroom with Nora. I had to give her a bath because we left my mother's place without taking a bath since we were in quite a hurry. I got her dressed up, and then she told me she felt sleepy, so I read her some books before she slept off. After putting Nora to bed that day, I found it very hard to sleep. I wanted to sleep just so I could ignore my husband. But sleep didn't come at all, and I kept thinking about everything that happened with Landon. While I was busy thinking, Cole walked into the bedroom and he asked to have a conversation with me. He sat on the bed with a cigarette in hand. He didn't light it yet, and I could tell it was because of Nora's presence. I was aware that Cole had the habit of smoking whenever he was stressed. In a year it was possible he would only smoke a total of 8 times. So when I saw the cigarette in his hand, I knew that there had to be something wrong. I was worried, but I didn't suspect that he knew I had been cheating on him. By that time, I still had 2 weeks before I finished the personal classes with Landon. Cole asked me how that was going, and I just told him that I no longer wanted the classes. He asked me why, and I just said that I finally found my confidence. My main reason is because I didn't want to continue seeing Landon every day, knowing fully well that he had feelings for me and I had cheated on my husband with him. I didn't want to make the complicated situation more complicated, so I chose to choose the easy route. I asked Cole what he wanted to speak to me about, and he just asked me why I slept outside the house. I told him I'd missed my mother and just wanted to keep her company for some time. Cole didn't say anything for a very long time, and I didn't know what had been going through his mind. I tried to act nonchalant by acting like I was suddenly sleepy. I asked him if there was anything else he wanted to say, and he said no. I ended up pretending to sleep after that. I gathered my daughter in my hands and cuddled her. Cole later left the room after that. He came back some minutes later and dropped a note on the nightstand. I pretended to be asleep, but after I heard the front door open and close, I checked the note. He just wrote in the note that he wanted to go grab some fresh air. I was relieved to see that he left the house. I had my bath, then changed my clothes. I just had some noodles for breakfast before going back to sleep. I actually slept at that time. 1 week after I cheated on Cole and discovered that he had no clue, I thought he'd never find out, so I wanted to forget the incident and make my marriage work. I didn't want to lose him, and I didn't want Nora to live without both her parents in the house. I grew up without a dad, and I didn't want to be the one to make my daughter go through the same. Cole was hardly at home during those 7 days, so it was hard to get together with him. But I decided to spice things up with him during the weekend. After putting Nora to bed, I got dressed in a very skimpy nightgown and lit candles in the room. I feel like a fool now that I think about how stupid I had been. I wanted to be extra and set the mood just like I'd seen in some of the videos I'd watched. It was just my way of having fun and doing something right for both of us. I didn't get to work for 1 week because I had to stay home and think about everything that had happened. I came to the conclusion that I wanted to save my marriage, so I had to go through all those means. When Cole came into the bedroom, he was very shocked and his eyes widened in surprise. I blushed a lot because I had never done anything like that in my life. I walked up to him and spread my hands around his shoulders, but Cole pushed me away. I was very shocked to see what he did. I didn't know what to expect when I lit up the room and got into a skimpy nightwear, but I certainly didn't expect my husband to act the way he acted with me. I was embarrassed, but I tried to act strong and not show it. I asked Cole why he behaved that way, but he didn't respond, so I tried to walk up to him and touch his hair. He always liked it when I touched his hair, but Cole rejected my touch and pushed me again. It was hard to process getting rejected by my husband. I won't even lie. I tried touching him again, but he rejected my touch again. Instead of pushing me that time, he grabbed both of my hands and twisted them behind me. Guys, I actually got scared and tried to run away because I didn't understand why he was behaving like that. Cole looked into my eyes and started shaking his head. He was so angry that I could see the veins that were lined up in his neck. "So you cheated on me with your personal coach, and then you want to touch me. You think you have that right?" Those were the words Cole said to be. I was very shocked to hear that he had been aware of the truth. He told me I made a fool out of him and that I made him a laughingstock just because he didn't write off my feelings and cared for me. I started crying like a fool because I didn't know what to do. I dropped on my knees and started apologizing to him. Cole wanted to yell at me, but we heard our daughter crying in her room. She had woken up. Cole just bit his lip and told me to expect the divorce papers soon. That was all he said before leaving the house. I have not seen Cole since that day at all. It's been 8 days, and he hasn't even come to the house to see his daughter. My mother has been the one coming to the house, and she has tried her best to call him, and he has blocked the both of us. I got so tired that I just started typing away on the computer as my way of dealing with everything that happened. I saw that Reddit is one of the best places to share stories like this, so I decided to share it here. Update. Nothing changed, guys. Cole still rejected my touch after he came back 14 days later. I didn't see him for a total of 22 days. He just came back and handed me the divorce papers. Then he asked me to pack out of his house. My mother was at the house at that time, and she tried to beg him on my behalf, but nothing she said was able to get him to change his mind. He had made up his mind, and nothing I said was able to change that. I asked him how he found out, but he ignored me and chased me out of the house after packing my things. I told him that if I left the house, I'd be leaving with Nora, and that I will not let him take her. He told me he had no problem with me taking her with me. He was busy with work, so he couldn't just leave her at the house. I was very relieved to hear that, and I left without complaining. I told my mother to take Nora home with our belongings. I had to go to Landon's place and ask him what had happened and why Cole had a big injury on his shoulder. When I asked Landon what happened, he told me that 2 days after we slept together, Cole had rushed into his house and picked up a fight with him. He said Cole asked him if he slept with me. I was surprised that Cole would suddenly ask that. I was suspicious and accused Landon of telling Cole the truth. He denied that and told me that Cole asked him if I had slept over at his place. That was when I realized that Cole must have thought I lied when I said I was at my mother's place, and since he had been suspicious of me and the coach before, he suspected him. I then understood why Landon had not been home frequently for a full week after I slept with Landon. He found out the truth and chose to avoid me. Landon also told me that he told Cole the truth after they punched each other. I was very angry with Landon, and I accused him of being a snake. He told me that was his way of paying me back for leading him on. Landon also had an injury, but I didn't care. I just left his house and warned him never to reach out to me. Cole and I got divorced 1 month ago, and it's been very difficult. Nora keeps asking me where her data is, and my guilt just keeps on rising to the extreme. I can't believe that my bad decisions will make my daughter grow up in a broken home. I never wanted that for her, but I ended up being the one to ruin the home for her. I'm wrong and I'm guilty. I should never have compromised everything we had in our marriage. I should have stopped going to my workout sessions the moment I realized that I was getting attracted to the coach. I should have never flirted with the coach. There's no day that I don't regret everything I did, but I just have to accept the consequences of my actions and focus on Nora. I just pray she doesn't resent me when she grows up.